Kody Brown walked into that room last night on Sister Wives with the swagger of a man who thought he was about to deliver a life-changing proclamation. But instead of healing old wounds, he exposed every ounce of arrogance, entitlement, and narcissism he has spent years insisting he doesn't have. What unfolded between Kody, Christine, and David wasn't a conversation, it was a collision between reality and Kody's fantasy version of events, and Kody lost control the moment David dared to speak the truth out loud. From the second Kody opened his mouth, it was obvious the apology he claimed to be offering wasn't for Christine's sake. It wasn't even about closure. It was about Kody performing, trying to look noble, wounded, misunderstood, anything but accountable. He launched into a dramatic monologue about their beautiful relationship, the magic they once shared, and how deeply he wanted her to heal. But Christine wasn't buying a word of it. Why? Because she healed long ago, before she ever married David, long before Kody felt like pretending to care. Christine and David sat there confused, and honestly a little stunned, listening to Kody rewrite a history they both lived through. Christine didn't need healing. She didn't need closure. She certainly didn't need Kody claiming to set her free, as if she had spent years waiting for his royal blessing to move on. She walked away. She built a new life. She found love. And here was Kody, performing repentance while refusing to acknowledge the actual damage he caused. Then came the moment that shifted the entire energy. David spoke. Calm, grounded, respectful, but firm. He pointed out what truly mattered. Kody needed to repair his relationships with his children. The women were not the ones still hurting. The kids were. But Kody bristled, his ego instantly threatened. He couldn't handle advice from another man. He couldn't stand that David was defending Christine. He couldn't tolerate that David understood the truth. The past marriage wasn't the crisis anymore, the children were. Instead of accepting this, Kody snapped back into defensive mode, insisting he was only there to apologize to Christine. Not to David. Not to the kids. And certainly not to reality. He said he didn't care what anyone thought, as if the only voice that mattered was his own. Every boundary others set, he ignored. Every boundary he claimed to set, he demanded others obey. When Christine said she didn't need an apology, he refused to stop. When David reminded him the kids deserved healing, Kody shut it down. When the truth got too close, he attacked the messenger. Kody didn't show up to apologize. He showed up to be validated. And when he didn't get the worship he expected, his mask cracked. His God complex slipped through every word. He didn't set Christine free, Christine freed herself. And that, more than anything, is the wound Kody cannot heal from. Exposes the moment he finally met the one person he could not manipulate, David Woolley. The tension between them grew so thick you could practically feel the air change. Kody wasn't just uncomfortable, he was threatened. Because for the first time, someone stood before him who not only understood Christine, but understood the entire pattern of Kody's behavior in a way Kody never expected. The spark that ignited the confrontation was simple. David dared to advocate for the children. He didn't attack, he didn't belittle, he spoke the truth with calm confidence. He said the kids needed their father more than Christine needed apologies. He said a man must show up for his children, not for ego or validation. And that truth hit Kody like a punch to the gut, because deep down, he knows it's true. But instead of listening, he recoiled. It wasn't the message he hated, it was the messenger. Especially one who wasn't afraid to stand eye to eye with him. This is where Kody's facade truly cracked. He kept repeating that he wasn't there to talk about the kids, almost like he was chanting the words to keep reality away. He kept insisting, "I'm just here to apologize to Christine," like if he repeated it enough times, it would erase everything he had done for years. He wanted a moment to look virtuous, not an opportunity to confront the truth. But David wasn't providing that stage. Kody's agitation exploded when David mentioned something Kody absolutely didn't want to hear: accountability. "I had to do it with my own kids," David said, opening the door for Kody to accept responsibility. Instead, Kody slammed it shut. He refused to even acknowledge David's point, because in Kody's world, accountability only applies to other people. He needs to be the hero, even when he's the villain. As David continued, Kody bristled like a cornered animal. He didn't want advice from David, not because he disagreed, but because David's presence stripped him of his usual power. Here was a man Christine trusted, a man who didn't fall for Kody's emotional theatrics, and Kody couldn't stand it. David defending Christine made Kody furious. David caring about the kids exposed Kody's lack of involvement. And David understanding the dynamics of polygamy better than Kody ever expected pushed every insecurity Kody has tried to bury. In that moment, Kody wasn't a noble father seeking forgiveness. He was a man drowning in the consequences of his own ego, lashing out at anyone who dared hold up a mirror. His resentment toward David wasn't just about Christine's new husband, it was about the fact that David represented everything Kody isn't: stable, honest, protective, accountable, and willing to face hard truths. The so-called apology meeting wasn't a chance for peace. It was the moment Kody realized he had lost control of the narrative, and that Christine's new life didn't include him at all. And nothing, absolutely nothing, threatens Kody Brown more than irrelevance. What happened next was nothing short of surreal. Kody walked into that conversation with Christine and David convinced he was delivering a heartfelt, noble apology. But what he actually delivered was one of the most self-centered, tone-deaf performances in the history of Sister Wives. Every word he spoke was layered with ego, self-pity, and a craving for validation that Christine simply no longer had to give. He began describing their past relationship like it was some kind of epic love story, filled with magic and beauty, a romantic tale Christine would feel nostalgic about. The problem: Christine wasn't reliving their past with rose-colored glasses, she was relieved to be out of it. While Kody painted elaborate pictures of happy years together, Christine sat there with the composure of a woman who had already healed, rebuilt, and moved on long before this conversation ever occurred. Kody didn't seem to grasp that. In his mind, this apology was a grand gesture, him climbing down from his emotional throne to bless Christine with closure. He kept acting like she was waiting for him to free her from the emotional chains of their marriage, when the truth was simple: she had freed herself years ago. She didn't need him to heal. She didn't need him to let her go. She didn't need him at all. And that is the part Kody could not, and still cannot, swallow. Instead of taking genuine responsibility, Kody rambled endlessly about how he played the victim card in the past. But he didn't mention the actual harm he caused. The neglect, the favoritism, the abandonment, the emotional manipulation. He never addressed the years Christine spent crying alone, questioning her worth as he poured all his effort into Robin and her children. He never mentioned the surgeries he refused to attend, the moments he missed, the children he pushed away. Instead, he gave a vague, surface-level "I'm sorry" designed to make himself look reflective rather than actually be reflective. What made everything even more inappropriate was the way he professed love in front of David. He talked about how magical their relationship was, how much he cared, how beautiful everything once was. It wasn't closure, it was revival. It was Kody trying to resurrect a marriage that Christine buried long ago. And the more he spoke, the more obvious it became: this apology wasn't for Christine's healing. It was for Kody's ego. David saw it. Christine saw it. The audience saw it. The only person blind to the truth was Kody himself. When David gently reminded Kody that the real wound wasn't the marriage, it was the fractured relationships with his children, Kody's mask slipped again. He snapped. He didn't want to talk about the kids. He didn't want to acknowledge the pain he caused. He wanted Christine to pat him on the back and say, "Thank you for apologizing. You're a good man." But Christine wasn't playing that role anymore. In that moment, Kody realized something devastating to his inflated self-image. Christine didn't need him, didn't want his apology, and didn't care about his emotional performance. And nothing could have wounded Kody Brown more than that. By this point, Kody's apology had become less about closure and more about asserting control, and the truth was impossible to ignore. Kody Brown operates with a full-blown God complex. He didn't just want to apologize, he wanted to perform his generosity in front of Christine and her husband, to appear benevolent while avoiding the real issues he had caused. Every word he spoke screamed, "I am in charge of how you heal. I am the gatekeeper of your freedom." And that attitude, as shocking as it is, became the most glaring truth of the entire conversation. Kody literally told Christine he wanted to set her free so she could enjoy her life without the lingering effects of the past. Think about that. She left him. She moved on. She married David. She is happy. Yet here comes Kody, standing in front of them like a self-appointed savior, claiming he is the one granting her liberation. The audacity alone is enough to make anyone's jaw drop. It wasn't a gesture of humility, it was the ultimate display of narcissistic control disguised as compassion. Then there was the boundary debacle. Kody continuously claimed he had set boundaries with his children, Christine, and David, yet he refused to respect their boundaries in return. He ignored Christine's repeated insistence that she did not need an apology. He dismissed David's repeated attempts to steer the conversation toward the children's well-being. Kody's boundaries existed solely to protect his ego, to dictate the rules of engagement, and to ensure that the spotlight remained firmly on him. It wasn't about healing, connection, or responsibility. It was about Kody being Kody, untouchable and unaccountable. The God complex became even more glaring when Kody refused to acknowledge his failures as a father. David mentioned the children's need for reconciliation, and Kody deflected, blaming polygamy as if the entire system was responsible for the dysfunction in his relationships. He conveniently overlooked the fact that he chose to father multiple children across 4 marriages, abandoned them, and failed to support them. By blaming polygamy instead of his choices, Kody revealed a staggering level of denial. He can commit egregious mistakes, yet he refuses to internalize any responsibility. Even more disturbing, Kody attempted to rewrite the very concept of triangulation. He accused Christine of triangulating with the children when she tried to facilitate healthy communication, completely ignoring the years he himself spent manipulating, alienating, and controlling relationships for his own benefit. This was a textbook display of gaslighting, turning the tables to make himself appear morally superior while projecting blame onto others. In essence, Kody was trying to silence Christine, control the narrative with David, and block the kids from having honest relationships with their mother. And through all of this, Kody still presented himself as the wounded hero, the magnanimous father, the enlightened ex-husband. The shocking truth is undeniable: this wasn't an apology. It was a performance, an ego-driven spectacle, and a demonstration of how narcissism can masquerade as redemption. Kody Brown may claim to be letting Christine go, but in reality, he's still holding on, to her, to control, and to the illusion of his own moral supremacy. While Kody's ego took center stage, the real victims, the children, were left in the shadows. Every excuse, every grandiose monologue, every performative apology ignored the core issue, the fractured relationships with his own kids. This wasn't about Christine. This wasn't about David. This was about years of neglect, broken promises, and a father unwilling to confront the damage he caused. And yet, Kody acted like the drama belonged to everyone else while he remained blameless. The moment David shifted the focus to the children, Kody recoiled. It wasn't disagreement, it was denial. He refused to hear why his kids needed him to own his mistakes. He refused to acknowledge that his choices had consequences that rippled across the family for years. Instead, he doubled down on his narrative, insisting that he was the one apologizing to Christine and that everything else was irrelevant. The real message: I don't care about the pain my actions caused anyone but myself. What makes this shocking is how Kody tries to control even the children's healing. He demanded that they reach out and apologize to him first, turning reconciliation into a chore that must serve his ego rather than a genuine act of rebuilding trust. And when Christine facilitated healthy communication between him and the kids, Kody immediately labeled it triangulation, completely ignoring that he himself had spent years manipulating relationships and isolating children for his convenience. In Kody's twisted logic, if someone else tries to help heal, it becomes a threat. But if he ignores, abandons, or controls them, it's justified. This is narcissism in its purest, most destructive form. Kody's refusal to take accountability for his parenting is staggering. He blames polygamy, circumstances, and even other adults for his failures, all while presenting himself as a benevolent father. Yet the reality is crystal clear: he chose to father multiple children, abandon them emotionally, and refuse to provide basic support. Every failure he experiences with his children is not an accident of circumstance, it is the result of his deliberate choices. And still, he refuses to accept that. Instead, he projects blame onto others while demanding that they respect his boundaries, which are, in truth, designed to protect his fragile ego rather than serve the family. The irony is brutal. Kody professes love and care, yet he simultaneously refuses to engage in the very work required to repair relationships. He publicly claims he wants to set Christine free, but he continues to trap his children in emotional limbo, making them pawns in a drama that should have ended years ago. The real victims aren't his ex-wives, they are the kids who grow up with a father more concerned with image and ego than presence, support, or honesty. By the end of this encounter, the audience sees the shocking truth. Kody's apology is nothing more than a performance, his God complex is unmasked, and the children, those who should be at the center of care and attention, remain the most damaged by his arrogance. The spectacle isn't redemption, it's a reminder of what happens when ego is allowed to dictate family dynamics, leaving innocence and healing by the wayside. If parts 1 through 5 expose the consequences of Kody's actions, part 6 strips down the man himself, revealing the narcissism that drives every choice, every word, and every so-called apology. Watching Kody interact with Christine and David is like watching a masterclass in ego over empathy. He dominates conversations, manipulates narratives, and refuses to accept reality if it doesn't align with his self-image. It's staggering, and yet it feels almost inevitable once you understand his mindset. Throughout the apology, Kody made it abundantly clear that the world should revolve around him. He dismissed David's input, claiming he wasn't there to speak to him, yet simultaneously demanded attention, acknowledgement, and gratitude from Christine. He ignored repeated cues that his apology wasn't needed. Every attempt by Christine or David to redirect the conversation toward meaningful reconciliation, particularly for the children, was met with defensiveness, deflection, or outright dismissal. Kody's world is one where his feelings, his perspective, and his ego come first. Everyone else exists to validate him, not the other way around. Even his verbal tactics screamed narcissistic control. Kody labeled Christine's attempts to facilitate healing as triangulation, flipping the script to make her the villain. He accused her of meddling in relationships when, in reality, she was attempting to act in the children's best interest. This is classic gaslighting. He distorts reality to protect his image and avoid responsibility. By redefining the very terms of healthy family interaction, he insulated himself from accountability while appearing morally superior. The audacity of this behavior is both shocking and painfully transparent. Kody's arrogance also extended to his selective acknowledgement of past wrongs. He briefly admitted he didn't love Christine in the past, but that was the extent of his real apology. All other transgressions, the abandonment, the missed surgeries, the neglect, the favoritism, were conveniently erased from his narrative. And when confronted with the consequences of his actions, particularly how his absence affected his children, Kody refused to engage. He didn't just avoid accountability, he created a narrative in which he was the hero, the misunderstood, and the magnanimous figure setting Christine free. Yet the freedom he supposedly grants isn't needed. It's a performance designed to elevate himself. The most shocking aspect is the complete lack of self-awareness. Kody claims to apologize but fails to see that the audience, and, more importantly, Christine and David, see right through him. He wants applause for a role he didn't earn, for an apology that serves himself, for a performance that obscures the damage he has caused. He refuses to acknowledge that real healing requires humility, responsibility, and accountability, qualities he has yet to truly exhibit. By the end of this exchange, Kody's narcissism is undeniable. His God complex, manipulative tendencies, and self-serving logic leave a trail of emotional damage in his wake. Christine moves on. David remains a steady, protective figure. The children continue to suffer from Kody's avoidance and delusions. And Kody. He walks away thinking he has performed a great act of generosity, oblivious to the reality that the world, and his family, has moved on without him. The final act of this dramatic confrontation left no illusions. Kody Brown is a man trapped by his own ego, incapable of true accountability, and desperate to control the narrative of his life. What he intended as an apology ended up exposing the full extent of his narcissism, arrogance, and refusal to face reality. Christine and David, by contrast, emerged not only unshaken but profoundly unaffected by his theatrics, demonstrating a clarity and emotional resilience Kody can only dream of. Throughout the exchange, Kody oscillated between performative remorse and aggressive defensiveness. He positioned himself as a savior, granting Christine freedom she had already claimed, but simultaneously dismissed the real work that needed attention, repairing fractured relationships with his children. Every misstep, every absence, every failure he had ever committed as a father or husband was neatly excused as the byproduct of circumstance or polygamy, a deflection so blatant it became painful to witness. By blaming the system rather than himself, Kody revealed that he had never truly confronted the impact of his choices. He wanted to be admired for apologizing while refusing to apologize for the things that truly mattered. Even when David tried to steer the conversation toward what was urgent and real, the children, Kody's fragile ego recoiled. He refused to acknowledge the harm he caused, claiming the kids should reach out to him first before any reconciliation. He accused Christine of triangulation when all she attempted was to facilitate communication, effectively punishing both mother and children for trying to heal. The shocking audacity of this behavior exposed the depth of Kody's inability to empathize. His focus was never on repairing damage, only on protecting his inflated self-image. And yet, amidst Kody's relentless self-absorption, the truth shone through with stark clarity. Christine, who had spent years building a life without Kody, remained poised, unaffected, and unapologetically independent. David, calm and unwavering, represented the stark contrast between accountability and ego, presence and performance. Together, they highlighted everything Kody lacked: humility, responsibility, and the willingness to put others before himself. Watching the dynamic unfold, it became obvious that Kody's apology was a desperate attempt to reclaim relevance in the lives of people who had already moved on. This confrontation also revealed the real victims, the children. While Kody performed for Christine, his own kids continued to suffer from his emotional absence. His refusal to engage honestly with them, his deflection of responsibility, and his manipulations left them in limbo, caught in a drama that should have been about growth and reconciliation, but instead revolved entirely around Kody's ego. The shocking reality is that all the apologies, explanations, and performances cannot undo the years of neglect and absence. For them, the pain remains. In the end, this episode of Sister Wives was less about closure and more about exposure. Kody Brown's God complex, narcissistic tendencies, and refusal to face the consequences of his actions were fully unmasked. Christine thrived, David protected, and the children, though affected, have advocates and stability. Kody. He left the room convinced he had done something heroic. The truth is far more revealing. He is still a man at war with reality, incapable of change, and trapped in the very ego he projects to the world. This shocking unraveling is not just entertainment, it is a stark lesson in the dangers of unchecked narcissism within a